Greeny's wife should get it, and then this is a nice.
Oh my God!
Also, DeGay's lovingly had it.
Oh my God!
Hey, look, there's Mike
that's
going.
probably the one, though. I would say the butt photo one is. Yeah, I'm not sure what we're going to do with that one.
I can't wait because this is a fun time. I'm sure for you and Mike both. You guys are reminiscing. You're going over great moments. So I look forward to all the stories and you guys.
Oh yeah. We'll have some. It's winding down.
And speaking of winding down, the baseball game has just ended. That's right. It is officially over.
Seriously, you have to be an unbelievable fan of baseball or either one of these teams to have stayed up for 4 hours and 37 minutes. Are you or to be your job?
Correct.
To stay up and watch something like that. Seriously?
I felt compelled as a Baseball Tonight host, and like you said, it's part of my job doing the show with you. I'm like, all right, I've got to hang in here. But for the average person that works 9 to 5, how on earth could you justify? It was the 6th inning, and it was 11 o'clock.
That was crazy. I don't know how you do it. I don't get it. It's too long. But I don't know. Listen, not like I have an answer other than start at 2 hours earlier. But
right. That's the whole thing. Like, can you just go at 7 o'clock at the very least?
Yeah, I think 7 o'clock would be the perfect time, but they don't do it. West Coast would be 4 o'clock or whatever their reasons may be. But I think 7 o'clock would be the perfect time. You know what we do is we have this conversation every single year. Every year. And then everybody who's not on the Eastern time just says, oh, shut up, you guys. Just East Coast bias. You're just worried about yourselves. Yes, we are.
I have a suggestion as you're winding down the program. Just topics that you've discussed the most in the history of Mike and Mike, because one of them has to be earlier start times for baseball and the whole situation of rust versus rest, which we will get into today.
Oh, my God.
Does it favor the Dodgers to have been rested, or is it rusty now having to come back against a Cubs team that just came off this thrilling victory? We'll get to all of it right now.
Off the top.
Let's do a little off the top, shall we? Of course, football was last night as well, a battle of 4-1 teams. The Eagles held off the Panthers 28-23. Carson Wentz threw 3 more touchdown passes, giving him 7 over the past 2 weeks. Wentz hadn't thrown more than 2 in any of his first 20 NFL starts. In watching the game, Mike, many observations, one of which is this. They really missed Lane Johnson, so it felt like every time the offensive line in the pocket was collapsing for Wentz, but he's got the wherewithal to make some moves and buy time. Obviously, an improved receiving core, and the defense held up against Cam Newton.
Yeah, they did. And how about road wins? Carson Wentz has 3 road wins so far this season. And obviously, as you mentioned, throwing for the 3 touchdowns. But, he won 1 time on the road last year as a rookie, 3 times already this year. I love what we're going to get way more into this game. The tough part for Carolina, obviously the loss, but then the loss of Luke Kuechly out again in the second quarter in concussion protocol. He's missed games the last couple of seasons. I have a lot, too, to talk about with him. But the Eagles right now, you're talking about the best team in the NFC. You have to look at the Eagles and what they're doing with their ability to run the ball or have rushing attempts and just how much more comfortable Carson Wentz is in the pocket. And that Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz quarterback tight end relationship is one of you always see usually good ones with the good teams. These guys are hitting a really high level with it as well. You're seeing Christian McCaffrey getting way more involved in the Carolina offense, even though they're very short passes. 3 interceptions last night for Cam Newton. 2 weren't his fault.
Yeah, I the receivers dropped balls and missed runs.
Although the first one, Fletcher Cox pushed the O-lineman right back into Cam's face, and the ball was tipped for a pick. Another screen to Stewart. It bounced off his hands into a defender. The third one was either just a bad throw or miscommunication. So you'll see 3 interceptions for Cam Newton, but 2 of them for sure not his fault, and they couldn't run the ball. You know, we have this big stat now of rushing yards before contact. They were -1 yard, -1 yard before they were getting hit. Yeah. And if they didn't have Cam Newton's, 77 or 71 rushing yards, they had 89 total, I believe, in this game. 80 yards rushing total. Cam had 71 of them. So that tells you where that running game is.
Amazing to think the Eagles, Jim Schwartz is defensive coordinator, number 2 right now in run defense. Right. That's how good they've been, how stout they've been. And I'm with you on Fletcher Cox. My eyes were open. Rex Ryan said last week in the NFL Countdown, he thinks he's the best defensive tackle in the game. You get an argument from Aaron Donald fans and Dominican Sue. But Cox is such a difference maker.
He's in the conversation right there, and he was just taking Trey Turner. I was looking at that matchup, Trey Turner and Fletcher Cox. Trey Turner, one of the better guards. Fletcher Cox was winning all night long.
No matter what, you got to double team him, and even then, he creates other lanes.
Off the top.
As far as baseball is concerned, as Mike and I mentioned, the Cubs scored 9 runs in Game 5 on the road in Washington. They hold on to advance to the LDS against the Dodgers. Chicago had put up just 8 runs combined in Games 1 through 4 of the series. As for Dusty Baker, his teams have now lost 10 straight postseason closeout games, an MLB record according to Elias. That's stunning. I mean, listen, sometimes those records are the byproduct of the fact he's been around for so long, and Dusty Baker has managed so many good teams and been successful. But unfortunately, when it comes to winning the big one, he can't do it. And more importantly, Mike, the Nationals can't do it. Once again, a flameout in the NLDS again for this team.
Talking about that city, the Capitals, President's Trophy the last couple of years, and they can't get far either. So, I mean, they're just teams at the they're just underachieving.
Yeah.
And you wonder, when does the clock run out? Is it when Bryce Harper signs somewhere else for $400 million?
Which I think
for this team, because they've loaded up, put themselves in position. The game last night was wild, with obviously the Cubs jumping out to that 1-0 lead, and then 4 runs for Washington in the second on a couple home runs. Michael Taylor hits another 3-run shot after a grand slam. So
that guy looks like he weighs 150 pounds, and he's hit huge home runs.
Then you get to the 5th inning, and Max Scherzer comes out for Washington. He gets 2 outs like it's nothing, and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
All hell breaks loose for 4 runs. Things we're going to get into with replays at first base, on tags, on the catcher getting hit with the bat on the 3rd strike pass ball. A lot of stuff to get into, but the bottom line is the Nationals, you're right, another Washington team underachieving, failing to move on, and the Cubs going for back-to-backers, huh? Moving on.
That championship experience. Who can say that with the Cubs now?
Yes.
That championship experience they can rely on to dig through.
Off the top.
The Yankees and the Astros begin their ALCS in Houston this evening. Masahiro Tanaka, who was fabulous in Game 3, he's on the hill against Dallas Keuchel. Keuchel has dominated the Yankees, Mike, in his career, an ERA of just 1.41 in 6 regular season starts, the lowest ERA against the Yankees among all active starters. Full credit to New York for their comeback, coming back from 2-0 against Cleveland. But I love the Astros in this series. I think their offense is great top to bottom, and obviously with Keuchel and Verlander at the top of that rotation. I think the Astros win this in 6. And for the Yankees, I feel like this was amazing to beat Cleveland. I don't know how much more they have left.
The Verlander deal worked out pretty well, huh?
Spectacular.
You think so? And Tanaka, who pitched so well, obviously not too long ago, has got, is what, a 10.38 regular season ERA against the Astros. I mean, just brutal in the 5 starts that he's had against them. He's had, 8.88, I think, ERA. So he hasn't pitched well against them at all. I'm with you. The Astros offense, I think, is too good. Yeah. The question to me, we brought it up from the last series, you think Joe Girardi stays? Whether the Yankees want him or the talk of Joe Girardi might want to leave on his own is going to be interesting, because all the talk of Friday, what happened the last Friday with not challenging the call, the players saved him from that, gave him vindication on that one by moving on. But still, you wonder if his future's up in the air.
I completely agree with you. It's an important topic. But here's what I find asinine. The thought that the Yankees, by winning Game 5, saved Joe Girardi's job. Yeah. Listen, if you want to fire him, you want to move on, that's fine.
Right.
But don't let one game determine the outcome of Joe Girardi. That's so absurd to
Completely
say
agree.
that thing.
Completely agree.
But like I said, we'll talk more about baseball in a second.
Off the top.
And the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has granted the league's emergency request to set aside an injunction in order to dismiss Ezekiel Elliott's case, meaning he now faces that 6-game suspension. The NFL says that suspension takes place immediately. Elliott's attorneys, though, say they are all exploring other legal options, and further appeals are possible. With the Cowboys on a bye this week, Elliott will not be eligible to return to the Cowboys' active roster until Week 13 against Washington if the running backs' legal team can't put the suspension on hold again. The Cowboys already off to a slow start, and now they're going to miss this vital piece out of the backfield.
Yeah, so they would have the bye, and then they play San Francisco, then Washington, Kansas City, Atlanta, Philadelphia. So, a couple of big games there, a couple in the division as well. Listen, we had talked to our legal expert, Ryan Smith, about this. If they didn't win this appeal, the NFL, it looked like Zeke would play the entire season, and we'd go on from there and see what would happen after that. But they get the appeal, so the suspension is upheld, or it'll start when they come back. Now we'll see. I don't know what the union has left. I mean, as you said, they're going to explore all their opportunities or the options that they have to see if they can try and get it overturned yet again. That's where I need help, because, I need legal people to help me with this, because, a decision is made, an appeal is done, an appeal is heard, an appeal is granted. Now what happens? I mean, so the union will see if it's worth it, or at some point, do you just say, you know what, we're going to serve the suspension to be done with it?
Yeah, just for you and me and so many others. Ryan Smith, our legal analyst, will join us just under an hour from now to try to clarify the situation, what the Cowboys are facing with Ezekiel Elliott. That is Off the Top. The road to the World Series goes through ESPN Radio. Catch all the postseason action presented by AutoZone on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance today. Our guest list for today, not only Ryan Smith at 7, but Herm Edwards is coming up just under 20 minutes from now. Jessica Mendoza at 7:30, Stu Gatz at 8, and Eduardo Perez at 9:30. What an eclectic list.
Yeah.
All phone guests joining us on the Shell Penzo Performance Line. If you miss any of those guests, you can listen to all 4 hours